Hello people, this is going to be a start of a video, what I'm doing. I'm putting all my research that I've gathered over the few years and doing one long video, and I'm going to be showing that we're in a matrix, which means there's no actual physical mass out there. So all these changes in the Mandela effect is changes in where the information is stored, which is the hard drive, which is this magnetic field, which I've shown that in the videos, but I'll be showing all that in this video. But first, I need to show that we're in a matrix, because we're in a matrix. Then there's a hard drive to hold all the data. So that's what I'm going to do now, and I'm going to do it by showing how the sun proves that we're in our own little matrix that's connected to the collective consciousness. So that's what I'm doing now. Okay then, here we go. This is a little picture I've drawn earlier, but that's me from my viewpoint, and I see the sun in the distance over here with sunbeams shining through. Now I asked my friend to walk over so the sun is shining on him. So from my viewpoint, I will see the sunbeams shining on my friend. But for him, from his viewpoint, because the sun's going to stay at the same angle, the sun's moved over, meaning, from his viewpoint, he's going to be in the shade. So that's two different views of two different realities in the one reality. So this means we're all in our own little matrix, but it's got to be connected to the collective consciousness for us all to interact with each other. But yeah, this proves that we're in our own little matrix that's connected to the collective consciousness, and this is 100% proof. I hope I've explained it correctly for you. So that's the first part done. Okay then, the next part is to show where the collective consciousness is, where all the data is being stored. Now, from an experiment showing water holds memory, a listening device was used to record the electromagnetic field coming from the water to later reconstruct the DNA that was once in that water from the recording. Now that told me electromagnetic field holds memory, holds data. So it got me thinking, could Earth's magnetic field be the hard drive that's holding all our data, all our information? There's also another experiment, random numbers machine, that stops being random when there's a disaster that's happened, like 9/11. From all the data they gathered and all that, they show that every time there's a big disaster or a big event, the Earth's magnetic field reacts to what people are thinking, people are reacting, people are feeling, which I'm going to show that now, people talking about that now, so here we go.
Emotional focus of millions of people on a single event like 9/11 may form a global consciousness.
We are consciousness, infinite awareness, having an experience. And that consciousness can be as vast as or as tiny as we can be manipulated.
They knew the science of consciousness is real.
Does consciousness interact directly with the physical world?
To answer that question, Dr. Nelson and his colleagues deployed dozens of instruments around the world, random number generators.
And then in 9/11, it begins not being a drunkard's walk. It goes like this for 2 days.
It may sound bizarre, but Dr. Nelson and his team have been at this for the better part of a decade. The first spike showed up in 1997 with the death of Princess Diana. Other events like the Concorde crash, the Madrid train bombing, and the Pope's funeral all registered on those random number generators. But early on the morning of September 11th, the data went off the charts.
Today, there are over 60 random event generators placed around the world. The numbers that come into the generators during normal random events for global consciousness are just that.
There's nothing there.
Jeff Scargill, a research astrophysicist with NASA, admires the team's use of scientific method, but questions its results.
It's finding patterns in random data. The nature of randomness is that any pattern that you want to choose ahead of time will eventually show up, and just as an accident. Could happen by chance, but the chance is like 1 in a million or 1 in some really large number.
How does it work, and what does it all mean? Even the scientists don't know. The implications go beyond science into philosophy and religion. All we know is this: at this very moment, around the globe, the random number generators keep flipping those virtual coins, waiting to record our collective reaction to the next major world event.
In 1997, I started doing something which turned into what we now call the Global Consciousness Project, which is looking at the entire world in a way. We're using our same kind of technology we developed in the lab.
So he started doing experiments where he'd take a random number generator, an electronic circuit, and put it in the vicinity of a group that was meditating, thinking that this would create a large amount of coherent attention. Sometimes people knew the random generator was there, and sometimes they didn't know. And he wanted to see whether the randomness would become orderly during the meditation. And after hundreds of such tests by Roger and me and a bunch of our colleagues, we came to the conclusion that it does become less random in a context where we can infer that there's mental coherence going on, sometimes due only to attention.
On September 11th, a few hours before the first plane struck, this network of random number generators became more coherent, less random and more coherent.
This is as close as we can get to the base of the World Trade Center. You can see the firemen assembled here, the police officers, FBI agents, and you can see the two towers, huge.
In the case of the September 11th World Trade Center attacks in New York, the REGs measured a warning spike 4 hours in advance of the first plane strike and continued measuring the ensuing events and public reactions. Deep feelings of compassion enveloped the world, and a 50-hour trend ensued in the data, reflecting the profound effects of the event itself.
After 9/11, working with Princeton University and some other researchers, what they began to find is that there was a large spike in the magnetic fields of the Earth during 9/11 that is now attributed to the mass collective outpouring of heart-based emotion from hundreds of millions of people who witnessed the tragedy. There are 2 satellites over the northern hemisphere. Every 30 minutes they send back a signal telling scientists how strong this magnetic field of the Earth is. It's important because all life is connected to it. There is no them and us when it comes to the magnetic field of every CEO of every corporation, every leader of every nation, every blade of grass, every hamster, every goldfish, every human is linked to this field. So what happens, the field is important. And what scientists found is 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, 15 minutes after the first plane hit the first tower, there was a very unusual spike in the strength of the magnetic fields of the Earth attributed to the collective outpouring of human emotion, heart-based emotion, the strongest magnetic generator in the body.
Several hours in advance of a major world event, non-random, coherent numbers are present. A large spike in the data waveform appears, giving a precognition that a major event is about to occur of compassion.
The question is, can you create that effect without having a tragedy? Can you create it at will? And this has led the Institute of HeartMath to create a project that is called Global Coherence Initiative. Personal coherence is good, global coherence is really good.
If you have a golf ball-sized consciousness When you read a book, you'll have a golf ball size understanding. When you look out, a golf ball size awareness. And when you wake up in the morning, a golf ball size wakefulness. But if you could expand that consciousness, then you read the book, more understanding. You look out, more awareness. And when you wake up, more wakefulness. It's consciousness. And there's an ocean of pure, vibrant consciousness inside each one of us. And it's right at the source and base of mind, right at the source of thought, and it's also at the source of all matter.
On a graph, these phenomena show up as spikes, such as this one. And here is where this all gets very interesting. The date of this spike is September 11th, 2001. Just a coincidence? Well, how about this spike?
Oh my God!
December 26th, 2005. Or this one. April 8th, 2006. In all, dozens of world events, according to project scientists, are linked to the random number generators acting in a very unrandom-like way.
The deepest mystery we can explore is the mystery of consciousness. Do our thoughts and feelings begin and end in our brain? Or are they part of a larger tapestry, one that connects us to everyone and everything in ways we are just beginning to understand?
They're able to actually, for the first time, they're able to actually observe the human relationship between the magnetic fields of the Earth and when we're influencing those fields in very specific ways. Then they went back and looked at the data and said, does this only happen when bad things are present? And the answer was no. Super Bowl Sunday, the whole world is watching, and it's influencing the magnetic fields of the Earth. The funeral of Princess Diana, the whole world came together.
The September 6, 1997 funeral of Princess Diana yielded a major signal in the data. Global compassion following tragedy of major world figures or world loss of life yielded the strongest spikes in the data.
If something like Princess Diana's funeral was bringing 2 billion people to think about the same thing and maybe feel sadness or compassion together, that we should try to see whether our machines, our random event generators, could detect that, could react to it. So in that particular case, I asked all of my colleagues and friends who did the same kind of research, please take data. We had several lines of data in Europe, several lines of data in this country, put them all together, and remarkably enough, or maybe not so surprising if you believe the data from the laboratory experiments, we have a big, strong effect. If you did the same thing 100 times, you wouldn't see the size of change in our REG devices that we saw during the time of the funeral for Princess Diana.
So the Earth's magnetic field is where the collective consciousness is, the data to our reality. So seeing magnetic frequencies being created by powerful magnets being turned on and off in sequence and having them aimed at Earth's magnetic field is going to change the data and could possibly make people en masse feel certain feelings. There is mind control on a mass level here. What's the one thing governments would want the most? Or not the government, the people behind the government. And they would pay the most money on an experiment ever. That would be control of the people. And one way is to control the mind, control the thoughts, feelings. Now, they know that the collective consciousness is in Earth's magnetic field, so creating frequencies, magnetic frequencies, and aiming them at Earth's magnetic field is going to react and change the Earth's magnetic field, changing our reality, and creating certain feelings. And I believe that's why people are so docile at the moment. They're being controlled by this these frequencies that I've shown. Right, I'm just going to show you a bit of holographic universe now to show you what our reality is really like, and they go into it and explain that our brains are receivers that download frequencies from the frequency domain. So if our brains are frequency receivers, that's another way they could find in controlling our minds. So let me find that video and put it on for you.
What we call reality is actually a holographic picture that only looks and feels real to us inside it. Now maybe this will have more meaning for you.
This is the only radical thinking that you need to do. But it is so radical, it's so difficult, because our tendency is that the world is already out there, independent of my experience. It is not. Quantum physics has been so clear about it.
One last quote from Michael Talbot in the Holographic Universe. There is evidence to suggest that our world and everything in it, from snowflakes to maple trees to falling stars and spinning electrons, are only ghostly images, projections from a level of reality so beyond our own that it is literally beyond both space and time.
Physical facts make us come to an indisputable conclusion. Everything we see, touch, hear, and perceive as matter is only electrical signals in our brain. For instance, we see a bird in the external world. In reality, this bird is not in the external world, but in our brain. The bird we see is in fact the electrical signals in our brain. Likewise, the sounds we hear from the bird are also in our brain. Put simply, the shape and sound of the bird are nothing but the brain's interpretation of electrical signals. This is also true when it comes to distance. Someone who watches the stars in the sky assumes they are millions of light years away from him. Yet the stars are actually inside him, in the center of vision of his brain. While you are watching this film, the truth is that you are not inside the room that you assume yourself to be. On the contrary, the room is inside you. When you see your body, you think you are inside of it. But remember that your body is an image formed inside your brain as well. To imagine matter to have an existence outside the mind is indeed a deception. The perceptions we observe may well be coming from an artificial source. We can understand this better with an example. Let's imagine that we could take our brain out of our body and keep it alive in a glass box. Then let's get a computer filled with information related to a particular setting, such as image, sound, and smell. We'll connect this computer to the brain with electrodes and send the pre-recorded data to the brain. As our brain receives these signals, it will see and live the setting that the computer is transmitting. We could also send signals to the brain from this computer about our own image. For example, we could send the electrical information, such as the sight, hearing, and touch, that we would experience while sitting at a desk. Our brain would perceive that we were a businessman sitting in his office. This imaginary world would continue as long as the information kept coming from the computer, and we would never realize that we were actually a brain sitting in a glass box. It is indeed very easy for us to be deceived into believing that what we are perceiving is real, even though it has no material basis.
We have been conditioned since birth to believe that what we see out there is real, an independent, objective reality that has a life of its own. And our role is limited to observing it and perceiving it and interacting with it. Not so, according to the latest scientific research. We are projecting our reality first and then perceiving it coming back to us. The bird first arrives in our brain as wave frequencies downloaded from the field. The brain then translates those wave frequencies into a hologram of the bird by collapsing the wave function. That hologram is then projected out there so that the bird appears to be real. And then the bird comes back to us through our physical perceptions.
The more you look at something in detail in what we think of as solid matter, the less and less solid it begins to look.
The only realities we know are the ones our brain manufactures. Our brain receives millions of signals every minute, and we organize them into holograms which we project outside ourselves and call reality.
It's as if you were sitting in the middle of a movie theater with a white screen 360 degrees all around you, but the movie projected onto that screen was coming from inside your own brain. In other words, although we don't know exactly how this works yet, your brain is the movie projector, and the movie you're watching, that you're totally immersed in, is a hologram and is not real. In 1991, before all this recent research took place, Michael Talbot asked, if the holographic brain model is taken to its logical conclusions, it opens the door on the possibility that objective reality, the world of coffee cups, mountain vistas, elm trees, and table lamps, might not even exist. Is it possible that what is out there is really a vast, resonating symphony of wave forms, a frequency domain that is transformed into the world as we know it only after it enters our brain? Of course, now we know the answer is yes. That's exactly what's happening.
There is no out there, independent of what's going on in here.
Reality is unset jello. That's the way I like to put it. There's this just big indeterminate sludge out there that's our potential life, and there's and that we, by our very act of involvement, our act of noticing, our observation, we get that jello to set. We're intrinsic to the whole process of reality. Our involvement creates that reality. And so we have this involvement in everything. We are our world. There's no out there. We are, there's no place where we end and everything else begins.
David Bohm, you remember him, said that the tangible reality of our everyday lives is really a kind of illusion, like a holographic image. Underlying it is a deeper order of existence,
a vast and more primary level of reality that gives birth to all the objects and appearances of our physical world in much the same way that a piece of holographic film gives birth to a hologram. Here are some more quotes from the holographic universe by Michael Talbot. For Pribram, this synthesis made him realize that the objective world does not exist, at least not in the way we are accustomed to believing. What is out there is a vast ocean of waves and frequencies, and reality looks concrete to us only because our brains are able to take this holographic blur and convert it into sticks and stones and other familiar objects that make up our world. If the concreteness of the world is but a secondary reality, and what is out there is actually a holographic blur of frequencies, and if the brain is also a hologram and only processes some of those frequencies out of this blur, what becomes of objective reality? Put quite simply, it ceases to exist. Although we may think we are physical beings moving through a physical world, this is an illusion. We are really receivers floating through a kaleidoscopic sea of frequency. Michael Talbot was clearly ahead of his time, because now we have proof that there is no out there out there. All there is a holographic 3D total immersion movie which we are projecting so that it appears to be.
There is one thing that I don't agree with, and that is, he says there's no out there, but yet the brain's there to receive the frequencies from the frequency domain. I don't believe that. What I believe is it could be just a frequency or a light star, because we apparently after death we go into heaven, become a star, so it could be a light source, and frequencies, 5 frequencies for 5 senses, giving us this reality. So it might not be actually a brain that receiving, it might just be our souls receiving 5 different frequencies, giving us the 5 senses and giving us this life. So yeah, but there has to be an out there to exist. Oh, it's an hard one. Okay then, what is it I have done in this video so far? I've shown that we're in a matrix. I've shown that we are connected to the Earth's magnetic field, which is the collective consciousness. I've shown what our reality really is, that there is no chair, table, computer out there. It's all part of the collective consciousness that we're all connected to. It's just data, and it's just information in an hard drive. Now I'm going to have to show a few frequencies that is aimed at Earth's magnetic field, which is causing the Mandela effect, which I think the changing of our reality is just a side effect to them using mind control on the collective consciousness, because people are so docile and it's not, it's like we're in a twilight zone full of zombies, and it's not nice. I'm not liking it. So yeah, I've got to show that something's going on with these frequencies and they're aimed at Earth's magnetic field, so that's next.
amazing. And to describe it to you from, I mean, you can see it, but from the ground, it almost looks as though a cloud of smoke with its own mind is just shooting through the sky. This is absolutely incredible. Again, you're watching the SpaceX Falcon 9 rocket launch.
Now these are magnetic frequencies from powerful magnets being turned on and off in sequence to create a magnetic frequency of information, just like a computer will store data on a hard drive. And they do say the deeper they look into our reality, the more they are seeing ones and zeros. The version saying our reality is like a computer, you know, in data being stored and being changed. But yeah, now to get these from CERN, to get that magnetic frequency, which that now is hundreds of miles wide, it was reported, and to get it up to the Earth's magnetic field, they've been spraying magnetic chaff, which I've got a doctor in chemistry saying magnetic chaff that's been sprayed to carry that frequency up to the Earth's magnetic field, which I'll find that clip and show it you now.
After World War II, and the nominal thing is that it is a way of protecting the albedo of the Earth, that by spraying these geoengineered chemicals in the sky, somehow it's going to increase the reflectivity of the Earth, and so much heat won't come in and that. I don't know that I believe that explanation, but that's what they've been giving us. And it's a little strange. I tend to think that maybe what they're spraying is magnetic chaff.
Magnetic chaff to help carry these magnetic frequencies what they've created from powerful magnets being turned on and off in sequence, created a magnetic frequency of information, and chemtrails, which is magnetic chaff, have been helping to carry these up to the Earth's magnetic field, which is creating change. It's affecting the Earth's magnetic field, and when that's affected, it's affecting the collective consciousness, which we're all connected to the collective consciousness, so it can affect us all. And the Mandela effect, which I think is a side effect from them doing this to create mind control, to control people's feelings, to make them sad, angry, or ignorant, zombies. I mean, I've noticed, like, on NASA and stuff like that, when they're trying to trick us, they're not even doing a good job of it, because they probably know they don't have to do a good job, because the majority of the people aren't going to say anything, you know, aren't going to see it. They're just going to let it be, let them carry on giving them $52 million a day, you know. It's mad, this world at the moment. Everything I have shown and said in this video is not science fiction. It is scientifically possible, and I hope you can see that it is possible. And what you really need to do is think about, we need to get this stopped, because if we don't, then us truthers, us who want free will and all that, they're going to end up turning the whole world against us. We will not have a chance, we'll not have a hope in hell, you know. So, this information, we need to get it out and get it to the right people. I keep saying this and that. Any ideas of what to do with it, or if you can send it to people and you know, get the right people looking in it, because they need to be educated people who look at this, and then if they want to look further into the research of it to get the actual written data, you know, to get it proven and then get it stopped, you know. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope it was educational. Please like, share and subscribe, and any comments underneath are welcome. So till next time, bye. Well, also I've created a playlist on my YouTube channel of common law, which is quite a useful video to watch, and it'd be handy if you created a playlist of common law yourself and post these videos on it to share and let other people, because that is useful information that needs spreading. So there you go.